The rumor is, and this is not a rumor without cause. Well, kind of. We've talked. There are a few people that are insiders in the industry that are actual reporters and not just like idiots with a Twitter account that have said that the reason that what's going to happen very shortly is Sony buying Square Enix, and this was part of like the thing. Like they were selling off their Western division to kind of slim up and trim down so Sony can buy Square Enix. So I'm gonna ask.
Oh, so it's not like a huge. Oh, okay. I think I get it.
So I'm gonna ask two questions back to back. You can answer them both. One, how do you feel about it? Two, do you think that's actually gonna happen? Will, you seem like you're most excited to answer. So what's up?
I was most excited to answer because I was trying to stop you before you said. I was like, if you're about to say what I think you're about to say, I know where you're headed with this, and it was about Sony possibly getting Square Enix. Now, to answer your question, am I excited about it? I'm 70, not 30. Yes. The reason why I'm not too excited about it is because what someone said on Twitter, I saw they was like, if Sony so much as get their hands on Square Enix, you can kiss Mana, Saga, Bravely, anything in the underlying trilogy such as Octopath and
I was
Triangle
gonna say
Strategy.
the same.
You can kiss a lot of that goodbye if they get it. So a lot of those B titles gone. If they get them, you're gonna see Final Fantasy, Kingdom Hearts, and what
Dragon
else?
Quest.
Dragon Quest. There you go. We're
Mm-hmm.
gonna see those three. The rest of them kaput. And I'm just like, I'm not okay with that because them other titles that Square got a big legacy and a great fan base behind a lot of them. You get rid of those, you're basically cutting like a huge chunk of like a lot of your buyers out if you do that. I feel at least for me. So, and I ain't got nothing against Final Fantasy, Kingdom Hearts, or Dragon Quest. All great things, right? But it's just I think they shouldn't do it. I don't. But will it happen? I can't say because it feel like it's just up in the air. Like, oh, this is probably gonna happen, but I'm just kind of sitting here with my hands folded, waiting. So we gonna see what comes of it. If it happens, then I guess I gotta brace myself for something that I may not like.
All right, fair enough. I was actually gonna go down the same path as Will, like what Will said he saw on Twitter. I was gonna say some of the same stuff. I'm gonna come back around to that in just a second. Rakeem, how do you feel? Do you think
I,
that it can be like? Do you think this is gonna happen, and do you think it's a good thing?
I think it can happen. I think at this point, after all that we mentioned in our last podcast, by the way, check it out. We talked about acquisitions. At this point, anything when Bethesda got acquired, once Activision Blizzard got acquired, to me, anything's
Mm-hmm.
on the table now. I'm not excited. How to done? Shout out. I'm not excited. Mainly because I'm tired of seeing this. It feels like, too, like you guys mentioned, Square's mid division picked up a lot of momentum, like with Bravely Default,
Octopath.
Octopath, and Triangle Strategy, and that connection with and like the games that working with Nintendo and PC, they're doing pretty well. On top of that, it feels kind of I don't know. It almost feels unnecessary at this point, although we know like games are really expensive to make. And obviously, they did lose a lot of money with Marvel, so this could be kind of them a way to kind of save themselves getting out the red from that situation, which that makes sense from a business standpoint. But as a fan, it just feels kind of cheap. On that hand, I'm not very excited about that. But also, I kind of understand to a degree because I've always felt like, to me anyway, Square in the last decade felt like it was kind of leaning towards PlayStation a little more. Anywhere like Sony, it's a Japanese studio associated with Sony, it makes sense to be associated with that kind of console. That legacy they've been with them since the beginning, essentially, as far as their console. Um, but yeah, I'm not ultimately excited. Yes, I believe it can happen because at this point, I don't anything can be acquired. Once Activision got bought, I think anything can be acquired. There's nobody's off limits. I don't want to see that. I will bring up another thing as well, though. If you guys have noticed in the media for some of these acquisitions, these big acquisitions that are happening, some of them are starting to become investigated for certain
Oh
legal issues
yeah.
and problems like that. So if this trend continues, and I wonder if like the investigations are picking up, if any of these catch steam and somebody loses some money out of this or gets hit by the government for some of these situations, will some of these acquisitions slow down? That's something I'm wondering out of this. That's all I think about it.
That's a very good point, and I can't believe I forgot to bring it up. I will say this: as far as the investigations, I don't think that those are going to go anywhere, but I do think that if the FTC makes enough problems for all these publishers trying to buy them that they might slow down just based off that alone. There is a theory, I don't know how true this is, or well, it's a theory. I don't know if it's bullshit or if it's like a good theory, that the reason why Microsoft didn't buy those studios, especially since they're about to work with Crystal Dynamics, is because they're already buying Activision and they don't want to invite any more scrutiny and criticism. They were like, all right, well, Activision is all we can get right now. We're just gonna have to like lay low until that goes through, and then maybe we can start buying studios again. And so like they're kind of waiting things out. All right, Terrence, it's Europe, man. Like, what do you think? Do you think it is a good thing, and do you think it could actually happen?
Well, Raheem is such a good analyst that he pointed out the thing that I was gonna bring up is that yeah, the FTC kind of looking into this stuff makes me wonder, like when you mentioned the whole fact that they sold off the IPs to potentially look good enough for Sony to buy without having it be too big, that makes sense. And as far as Sony trying to buy Square, is that a good thing in my opinion? Kind of like what Will said. I mean, both of you really already hit on the points that I was going to hit on, or you probably hit on them better than I would have. But yeah, I don't know. I don't think that it's really a good thing if Sony chooses to only use the high profile IPs that Square is known for and throw away everything else, because that's we don't need that to happen. Like, Square has so much potential. They have so many IPs. Heck, even now, even with everything that they're trying to resurrect, there's still so many IPs that Square has that they could still do something with. And if they get acquired by Sony, yeah, you could pretty much kiss all that goodbye. Like Sony really wants the blockbuster titles. They don't really want any like indie level stuff. So you wouldn't get anything like what's it called? Trials of Mana? Is that what it's called?
Yeah.
Like, you wouldn't get anything more like that. You wouldn't get any little side stuff like Octopath Traveler. You wouldn't. You could kiss all that goodbye. What'd you say, Will?
I said no romance and saga, none of that stuff. All of it be just gone.
Star Ocean.
Yeah, like those Star Ocean. You could kiss like all those like what do you call them, like Sprite 2D 2.5D remakes. 2D. Yeah, HD2. You could kiss all those. You could kiss all those remakes goodbye, because Sony probably wouldn't want anything to do with that. So, if Sony were to go down that path, I would say no. It's not a good idea for them to acquire Square. But if they didn't, I'm just gonna say no. It's not a good idea, because I just don't think Sony would do it the right way. I just really don't. So. That's ultimately my answer. I think Will and Raheem already hit on the points that I was going to make. Is that one, I could when you mentioned the whole thing about Square selling off the Western IPs to look more appealing for Sony and make the acquisition easier, that makes a lot of sense. And it's that kind of sneaky stuff is the reason why we have to keep an eye on these businesses, because they're always trying to pull a fast one, and we need to hold them accountable. Yeah, we need to hold them accountable in that regard. So I'm glad at least that this stuff is getting investigated, and hopefully that will kind of slow down these acquisitions a little bit. I don't think it's going to stop them like what you said, Sage, but hopefully it means that maybe we won't see as many within maybe like the next couple of years, or at least until some of these acquisitions that are already happening go through. In regards to Sony buying Square, the potential of it, I hope it doesn't happen, just because I do want Square to remain independent. Them and Capcom, I really, since they're two of my favorite companies, they make some of my favorite games, I really want them to continue to be on their own and not be under a company like Sony, just because I could see so much damage coming from that.
So I'm going to go a little bit against y'all. I think that Octopath Traveler and Bravely Default, I think those would be safe. I think that Sony likes the appearance of caring about indie games and the appearance of caring about like the smaller titles. And that's like Studio Asano, such as it is, because it's not a proper studio, but like Studio Asano is the kind of shit that Sony really loves. It's the boutique studio that makes these like critically acclaimed games that the fans love, and they perform just well enough. What I think is dead is Star Ocean. Star Ocean didn't perform well on the PS3. Star Ocean did not perform well on the PS4. It didn't even review well on the PS4. Like, it was just considered to be all around a bad game. I think games like the Mana series, I think the Saga series, because like my limited understanding of Square Enix is that all it takes for a new IP, for a new installment of an IP to get made, is for like someone that works there that's high up enough to like vocally stand up for that IP and go, I want another one of those, and I'm willing to work on it. And as long as they have that, unless the game is just like a critical crashing failure, you'll still get another one. Like as long as it does decent enough, like Star Ocean, I guess, because it was like the biggest problem with Star Ocean is that it was done on like a Star Ocean 5, excuse me. The biggest problem with Star Ocean 5 was that it was done on like a super fucking budget, and at a certain point, all it was is just a lot of backtracking, and that's what detracted from the game. And so, like, I think games like those, Sony, if they bought Square, would be like, yeah, we don't need that. Well, we don't need another Saga game. Those things don't perform all that well. We don't need another. Like, they would look at the games that don't perform well and aren't like necessarily critically acclaimed, and they would get those the fuck out of here. Studio Asano would be the like, see, we still care about non-blockbuster games. That would be that. But the rest of them, out the fucking window. Like all that front mission remake shit, you would have never gotten that if Sony bought them. Like they don't care about none of that. Not unless they bought Square and was like, yeah, we're buying Square just to buy them, but like they're gonna retain all autonomy. Which why? Like that's not how that typically works. So unless that were to happen, I think that you'd get Final Fantasy, you'd get Kingdom Hearts, you'd get Dragon Quest, and then you'd get whatever Studio Asano makes, and then all the rest of them out the fucking window, just immediately out the window. And so, like, I think it would be a bad thing. I think that sucks. I'm super excited to see if Divine Force is any good. Like, that's one of my favorite IPs. Of the 3 IPs that I grew up with, that I was like 3 franchises that I grew up with that I really love. Lunar, which is dead. It was dead really when I got to it because there was only ever 2 games. Suikoden, which is dead because Konami sucks, and then Star Ocean. Those are my 3 favorite IPs growing up, and like of those 3, there's only one left that's still getting any attention. And so I would be really bummed out if all of a sudden we're never going to be a Star Ocean 6 or 7 or whatever. So like I don't want to see this happen.
Do you all think that Nier, they would still keep that around?
Yes.
Automata did well enough that I believe they would.
Automata sold like upwards of 5 million. Like,
Automata did amazingly.
It does better. It sold better than Xenoblade, which everybody hypes up as like a big IP. It sells better than Fire Emblem, which everybody hypes up as a big IP for Nintendo. It sold extremely well, and it had like a really good critical reception. The fans loved it. That's the type of thing that would sell, that Sony would be like, yeah, we'll keep making that. It's along the lines of, it's like, not exactly this, but it's like the JRPG version of Ratchet. Like Ratchet ain't setting the world on fire sales wise, but it does well enough and people love it well enough that they keep making them. So it would be like that.
Okay.
And plus, I don't think they would want to bump heads with Yoko Taro on that game, because that man do not back down on anything regarding his series.
And they actually like that though. Like they like the auteur, like the genius director. They love that shit.
Yeah,
so,
that's kind of what I was thinking. Like, would they get rid of the more quirky stuff, or would they keep it? You know.
It depends. Like if there's like a strong creative director behind it, they probably would keep it. But as far as like, and I have seen people talk about like, oh, I don't think Sony would get rid of any of that stuff. And I'm like, you out your mind. Like the excuse is always like, oh, they kept Returnal. And I'm like, Returnal was like, specifically before Returnal, that studio used to make really small games that nobody played, that performed really well. And Sony was like, that's cool, but we gonna need you to make some AAA versions of that shit. And so like you get Returnal instead of getting what did they do? Matterfall and some other game that they did. Resogun, I think that's them too.
Oh yeah, I played that.
Yeah, they used to do like twin stick shooters, but they were like really simplistic. They didn't have the story. They didn't have the graphics. They didn't have it's like bullet hell type shit. They didn't have the production quality that you would expect. And like Sony is big on production quality. So like even if they can pull out a budget version of a production quality game, that's what they're gonna do, and that's what they would demand of Square if they bought them, I feel. And so like I'm not too excited at the idea of them buying it. And then like as for whether or not I think it could happen, I'm gonna say no, because typically you don't hear about acquisitions in advance like that. Typically they come out largely because of insider trading, like the potential, like if too many people know about it, there's too much potential to like rig the market, and so like you're not supposed to know about those things ahead of time. So I'm gonna say no. However, the 2 people that reported on it, Jeff Grubb and Greg Miller, they're both like respected industry people. They're not just like guys who like hop on YouTube to stretch out a 2-minute video into 10 minutes so they can get some clicks. They're not those guys. They're like actual industry people. So They might have heard that from reputable sources. I can only hope that's not true.